Welcome to the Water the Bamboo podcast, where we dive into personal leadership, personal growth, and success. Water the Bamboo podcast is really designed for you to achieve extraordinary results. Today, I want to explore a very important concept, and it's an old concept, but it's super important, especially for today, and that is servant leadership. In my view, the bamboo farmer is a servant leader, but I want to dive into what that really means for you, what that means for your team, what that means for society. Thank you for joining me on this podcast. Let's dive into servant leadership. Before we go further into servant leadership, I want to dive into this other idea about what are the challenges of being a leader today? Well, there are many, so many challenges. I think being a leader right now is probably one of the hardest things to do, just because of the changes in the technology, changes in the way people behave and act. So being a leader is really challenging. And so we just have to acknowledge that. And one way to think about being a great leader is we have to be dynamic. You have to adjust and adapt to the change that's around, also in the change of behavior of the people around you. I like to think about being a great leader as being able to play chess and checkers at the same time. So the chess pieces all want to be moved differently, whereas the checker pieces want to be moved the same. In other words, people want to be treated fairly and differently at the same time. And if you think about playing chess and checkers on the same board without any more resources, that should resonate with you. One of the things that we know about leadership, it's not a one size fits all. Not one style will work. And so we need to think about what does work. And I believe diving back into servant leadership can be super helpful for you to think about how to deal with the challenges as a leader today. When I conduct leadership seminars for teams, what I'm trying to do is create a bamboo circle of servant leaders. And when we do our leadership seminars, this is really what this is about, is getting the teams to really bond and really understand what's really important in terms of their own leadership as a team. But since it's so dynamic, we need to actually train and teach each other and help each other to do that. I think that's really important to think about support. When people see the bamboo grow 90 feet in 60 days, they're super excited about it. But one of the things that I have to remind people is it's really about the roots of the bamboo. And in a bamboo circle, if you think about this, each stalk of giant timber bamboo will grow over 100 yards. So underneath the ground, the bamboo is super strong. And I think from a leadership perspective, we need to actually rely on each other as well. So creating this idea that we need to actually be deeply connected to other leaders to have that kind of support. If you ever see a grove of giant timber bamboo, what you should realize is the most important things about that bamboo is its deep connection. In terms of leadership, what's really important here is that we have to have high expectations, and we all do, that's right, but we also have to provide great support, and we have to have great support for ourselves. Leadership can be a super lonely place if you allow it. We need to lean into each other on our teams and other leaders to help us be stronger. The servant leader understands this. It's really important to get this concept down. There's a myth out there about the singular genius or the single leader. It's totally a myth. If you see someone being successful, what you should understand is there's some deep connections that are actually assisting that person to be successful. Having those deep connections and thinking about them are really important. It's an important concept in Water the Bamboo, this idea of a bamboo circle. So I want to sort of also introduce that as I talk about servant leadership here. The servant leader is someone who really authentically understands themselves, but understands their team. They put relationships first. This idea of taking care of relationships so we can get better results, super important. The bamboo farmer slash servant leader also is compassionate. They have integrity. They really think about those around them in terms of the results they want. They also are continuous learners. They look to learn and build on their skills. They're great listeners. Really thinking about being a great listener is important for a bamboo farmer. It's just super important to really listen. Listening doesn't mean you agree, but it's a way to show folks that you respect them. And having that kind of respect and that kind of relationship with folks, that way we can get better results. Servant leadership has been around for a long time. Robert Greenfield made this really popular in the 70s and the 80s. And Robert Greenfield was very interested in how to be a better leader Because a lot of times what was happening was it was top-down leadership. If you think about anyone who works anywhere right now, they're a volunteer. So top-down leadership doesn't really work. But how do you have influence on your team is really critical. How do you have influence on people? How do you connect with them, acknowledge them, and give clear directions? It's really about building relationships with them. But Robert Greenfield made this really popular, this idea of us being a servant leader. But really, it's rooted in a really interesting story by Hermann Hesse. Hermann Hesse had this story called The Journey to the East. And what was interesting about this journey to the East, there was a group of leaders, and they were going to go on this long journey. And on the journey, they had a servant. That servant name was Leo. And what Leo's job was is to give folks directions, show people where to go, help them with their food. He'd sing songs at night. He'd help them with their shoes and their equipment. He basically removed every obstacle they would have on this journey. He helped think through what the group was expecting, how he could support them, and the journey was going fabulously until Leo got lost. So when Leo got lost and away from the journey, well, it was very interesting what happened. The journey went in total disarray. People didn't know where they were going. They didn't know what to do. No one around to actually remove the obstacles. And the journey actually eventually disbanded. And what's interesting is the aha in this whole story is they realized it was Leo. Leo was the leader. You see, it's not how you do as a leader, but it's how the people around you do. So from a servant leadership perspective, we have to think about how do we remove obstacles for our team? How do we help them and guide them in setting expectations, but yet providing high levels of support? That's what a servant leader is. And how do you measure that? Well, you look at how the team does. How does the entire organization do from a leadership perspective? This is what we teach in the Water the Bamboo leadership system. How do we get our team leaders to understand this? How do we serve others to get them more engaged in what we're trying to do? How do we serve our customers better? But the first thing we have to do is be able to serve ourselves, serve our team to be able to move forward. Really important concept to think about. How can I be more of a servant leader? The benefits of servant leadership are amazing. The benefits are better productivity, more engagement. The benefits of servant leadership is to create psychological safety for our teams so they have enough trust so they can get the results they want. Teams that have servant leaders have better results. They have better relationships. They have better engagement and peak performance. And they create what I term the sacred bamboo circle, where people are deeply rooted in supporting each other. So many benefits to doing this. We spend a lot of time at work, so why not make it a sacred bamboo circle, a place where you can thrive and those around you can thrive, and so can your customers and the people around you. Really an important idea to sort of think about, being able to serve and help others. The core characteristics of a servant leader, I've already mentioned a few. Great communicators, really thinking about being a better listener, super important. They also are really authentic. They know who they are and they know what they care about. That's why in my book, Water the Bamboo, I start the book with values. Being a values-based leader, super critical to your own success and happiness. Really understanding what you care about and then actually taking actions around those things. Not identifying our values and putting them on the wall and ignoring them, but really being a values-based leader and being authentic to who you are. Those are all deeply connected. And where our ability to do these things can help us quite a bit. All these skills can be developed. We help people do this in the Water the Bamboo seminars. It's such an important thing to think about. How do I learn to give better feedback with compassion so people can actually hear it and actually get better? How can I become a better listener? All these skills are learnable. All those characteristics of a servant leader, I believe we can all learn. And they're skills, so we can practice. And once we have those skills as a team, we can practice with each other. I really appreciate you entertaining this idea of us being a servant leader. How are you serving people around you, your family, your friends? How are you helping them grow? How are you helping them thrive? Having high expectations is sort of normal, but the real question the servant leader is, how do I provide high support? How to remove obstacles for my team members so they can perform better? Really critical concepts to sort of take on. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Water the Bamboo podcast, thinking about the bamboo farmer as a servant leader. If this has been helpful to you, please send it on to a friend, share it with others, and please do subscribe. Thank you so much for joining me on this Water the Bamboo podcast.